Renegades Panyard, where there's a fourth competition.
So they're actually moving along Arapita
Yeah,
Avenue.
pan on the move.
You're a great lover of pan yourself, though, of course.
I can't help, because it's really an invention that is of Trinidad and Tobago. I think, too, that it is an invention of the descendants of African slaves, and that adds to it. I think, too, the instrument itself is a remarkable instrument, the tones, the range of notes, and what have you. And what I find most remarkable about it is that the many people who play the pan are self-taught by and large. Many of them do it by listening to the notes rather than reading the music. But more and more, with the kind of work being done by places and institutions like the Birdsong Academy, more and more people are playing the pan based on reading the music. And so we have a responsibility as a serious society not to let people take that from us, but to grow it and care for it and nurture it and encourage the younger people to become more involved in pan. And Vernon, what is instructive is that more and more the people who are playing the pans are young people. The contradiction, however, is that the people who are listening to the music are not the young people. The young people are still driven by the gym boots music. You follow?
Yeah. And in fact, as you mentioned, pan has been marginalized more and more in Carnival over the last few years, hasn't it?
Well, I wouldn't say so, but I certainly feel that this present council of the city of Port of Spain is doing its best to give pan the space it requires to continue to be seen within the carnival. When you think about the dominance of one or two of the big shows, you realize that everything else is small, minute. And that is the government's way of trying to promote, on the one hand, the Soca Monarch. And then on the other hand, when you have somebody who has grown out of the bosom of the thing and has become a big star, and chooses to, as it were, maximize his return on his investment, you recognize that people must do something to ensure that the pan lives beyond the panorama.
But what I meant was, we've been seeing over the years a kind of a disrespect on the part of music trucks. They would drown out. They had no problem drowning out a pan side as they passed.
In fact, they
seem to enjoy doing it quite often.
So this is why this year for the Juve we are doing what we are doing, and I have already begun discussions with the chairman of the Carnival Downtown Committee that next year, what we are doing for Juve, we want to do it for Monday and Tuesday, so that there will be a definitive route for pan Monday and Tuesday. And so pan lovers and people who play play the mass in bands will have a distinct route that is theirs, uniquely theirs, and so they will be cutting their space in the pan. This is something we have to discuss.
This is like a test run you're doing then?
Well, you always have to creep before you walk, yeah?
Of course, and I know you're very concerned about safety and security over Carnival. We always are every year. And one measure you wanted to put in place that to many seemed like a very reasonable measure was to ban the sale of glass bottles during the Carnival period. You've been stymied in that, haven't you?
I wouldn't say stymied, because to be stymied means that my mind would be locked in a vault and I couldn't get the brain waves out. Unfortunately, Minister Sharma and his government and Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar, it would appear, did not embrace an idea that really hinges on security. We felt that the sale of alcohol or drinks in glass bottles lent itself to some of the negatives of Carnival. I want to take you back, as I did with the press conference this morning. Some decades ago, we had a major steel band riot outside the Port of Spain General Hospital. I remember well, because I was a member of Highlanders, playing mass with Highlanders. We were going up the road to the tunes of Bertie Marshall. Was it Bertie Marshall? I might be getting my things.
It's a few decades ago, so
yeah.
You'll be forgiven if you forget the exact song.
And the music was so beautiful. We were going up the road, and then suddenly there was this flash. And I could still remember looking up into the sky and seeing the sun glittering because of the hundreds of bottles that were in the sky. Many people were cut and injured. Decades later, in 1973, I believe it was, the world famous Pelé, the greatest footballer the world had seen, visited Trinidad and Tobago to play a game at the Queen's Park Oval, and people were there from sun up to make sure that they secured a spot to watch on. And there was no entertainment and what have you. People were just there sitting down with their coolers, consuming their alcohol, drinking their beers, drinking their rum, eating their food. And towards late in the evening, people got tired of waiting for Pelé, and it was a riot of bottles. The loan commissioner at the time, and I made copies of it available to the press conference this morning, the loan commissioner, Commissioner Carr, who was commissioned by appointed by Dr. Williams to investigate into the matter, made several suggestions, but paramount on his list was that glass bottles were to be banned from the Queen's Park Oval for events, all events. Now, that was 1973. I think that is about 38 years ago. 38 years later, we as a society have done nothing to treat with a matter such as this. But we have found ourselves between a rock and a hard place, because last year Carnival, there was a major bottle pelting incident, Carnival Tuesday on Arapita Avenue. And in doing the post-mortem, and our post-mortem is held in concert with the police, we were apprised that the only major criminal activity that occurred during the Carnival was a murder, a single murder, and the instrument used by the killer was a broken bottle. Okay? Mm-hmm. That having been said, we proceeded to announce that we would proceed to no glass bottles during Carnival 12 and beyond. And we immediately set about doing the work to bring this to happen, so that we were working with the police all along, and the police's legal team was working with the corporation's legal team to make this happen. Eventually, we were advised that we should proceed to do our resolution, which would find its way into the president's proclamation. Now, sometimes when things don't seem right, you seek other opinions. And so I sought the opinion of the former Attorney General, who is Senior Counsel John Jeremy on the matter. And his opinion, which I have here with me, talks about the process to be followed, that it had to go via the Minister of Local Government into the Cabinet. Cabinet would advise the President. It would form part of the proclamation and it becomes law. But he has broadened his opinion to suggest that because the Minister of Arts and Multiculturalism is responsible for the festival, and this is a festival, this is falling under festivals, and because the Minister of National Security is responsible for a big chunk of the festival, the management of the festival, either one of the three could take it. So this morning, I wrote quickly, I got this last night, so this morning I wrote to Minister Sandy and to Minister Peters, asking them to please take it to the Cabinet tomorrow so that it would get into the proclamation, because tomorrow is the last Cabinet. Now, even if it does not get into the proclamation, my appeal...
Minister Sharma had already said he did not agree with the measure.
Yeah, well, I can only conclude that he would not take it, because
But of course the government now has glass bottles in Parliament too, so you can't. There's kind of a fondness for glass there.
Well, you see, I'm not getting into the pettiness associated with Minister Sharma. And I have chosen to ignore that fellow, because unless I am involved, nobody knows about him. You know, I don't think people even know that he's a minister. I remember a survey recently on television where they took two photographs, one of Minister Sharma and one of Minister George, Emmanuel George. And they asked 12 persons in the street, who are these people? 2 persons knew one of each of them. So that I think Minister Sharma is very happy